Hey folks, how's it going? So, Doctor Who Season 2 slash Series 15 has finally begun. I think I made my thoughts known pretty thoroughly last video that I posted, but just to reiterate briefly, going into the season, I have some concerns and some cautious hopes based on how last season turned out. I liked Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, I thought Millie Gibson did a fine job as Ruby, but nonetheless, I still felt that the season was a bit shallow and rushed. The truncated amount of episodes seemed to limit the amount of time we got to spend with Ruby getting to know her a little bit better, and there wasn't enough conflict between the two leads, which led to a lack of tension. On top of that, the quality level of the series was wildly uneven. RTD writing the lion's share of the episodes and delivering some of his best and worst scripts ever. The finale also left a lot to be desired, with an incredibly easy defeat of the big bad, and a deus ex machina reversal of the universe-ending chaos he'd unleashed, and topped off with an intelligence-insulting answer to the season-long mystery of who Ruby's mother was and why she was so important. But I digress. I'm happy to report that right off the bat, this episode clears a very important bar. It's better than Space Babies. We did it! We did it! We are better than Space Babies. We're back in better than Space Babies territory, baby. In fact, it's actually a pretty good episode. This was the type of episode I was hoping would introduce a whole new generation of viewers to the wondrous world of Doctor Who. Now, I do have my qualms with the story, don't get me wrong, a few nitpicks here and there, but overall I did genuinely enjoy this episode, so there aren't many. To start off, I'll just talk briefly about Ncuti Gatwa's performance as the Doctor. He's been playing the role for 3 years now, and at this point it seems like he's able to easily and comfortably slide into his version of the Doctor. He is energetic, boisterous, and as emotional as ever, and I do generally enjoy his take on the iconic Time Lord. However, I do feel that the show is still pushing him to be a bit bigger and broader than I think is necessary, to the point where his constant bouncing off the walls can actually get a bit annoying. Overall, when he's good, he's great, but I still feel like the writing and direction are letting him down a bit. As for the new companion, Belinda Chandra, played by Varada Sethu, I think this is a great and very promising start for this new companion. Varada capably plays a range of emotions across this introductory story, and even feels like she somewhat carries the story since it's so focused around her. The character honestly feels like a breath of fresh air, especially after the series of somewhat thinly characterized companions we've had for the past few seasons. Belinda doesn't just automatically commit her life to riding around in the TARDIS with the Doctor and going on dangerous missions because the script says so. She has a job and a life to get back to, and doesn't allow herself to get swept up in the Doctor's rather pushy, almost slimy attempts to whisk her off from the TARDIS. Their final scene together is well written, and calls out a common trope that has hurt the series in the past, planting the seeds of greater conflict between the two leads in the future. This more grounded, adult take on a companion character is exactly what was missing last season, with the Doctor and Ruby's too easy instant besties relationship. Aside from this more complex relationship dynamic, Belinda just comes off as a likable, relatable character, with a streak of noble self-sacrifice essential to any Doctor Who companion. She has a good sense of comedic timing, and reacts to the robot suddenly invading her life with a mixture of understandable fear and humorous irritation over how inconvenient the situation is for her. She's a bit more feisty and assertive than Ruby, and checks the Doctor more than once when he's getting too bossy. The dynamic is almost reminiscent of the 10th Doctor and Donna, which is a huge positive. So yeah, a promising start for our new companion. The rest of the cast doesn't have a huge amount of screen time, but I'll just briefly mention them. Sasha 55 does a lot of really great face acting with the limited amount of screen time she's given. I will say, as soon as she started mentioning seeing the stars with the Doctor, I knew she was doomed. It's impressive that the story gave us just enough time with her that we do feel bad when she dies. The surprise villain of the piece, Alan, handled the role well. I definitely felt like there was something a bit off with him in the very first scene, but just assumed that he would show up later as a Rory-esque bumbling sidekick or unrequited love for Belinda or something. I did clock the moment when Belinda told the robots to go grab him, assuming he'd get pulled back into the story at some point. But I did not pick up on the twist connection, which I think worked pretty well. He's good at playing the nerdy incel version, and then delivers the psychotic AI-infused cyborg version with the appropriate amount of over-the-top maniacal glee. The makeup job is also pretty great. Tons of little H.R. Giger-esque details all over his face and upper body. As for the production itself, this looks as high quality as ever from a visual standpoint, on par with what we've generally come to expect from Doctor Who with a Disney budget. I appreciate the continued use of practical effects whenever possible for their monster designs, and these big Playmobil-esque robots are a nice addition to the collection. The big rounded silver and red segments, The big chonky laser gun and the rotating emoji face evoke a giant action figure come to life. In fact, the overall aesthetic of this episode screams 90s Saturday morning playset. From the robots to the big rounded dome buildings of the city to the sinister-eyed AI generator and its secret cyborg resident.
He-Man's heroic fortress, Castle Grayskull, with trapdoor, laser, and jawbreak.
The laser gun death ray is also a creepy effect that makes this episode more visually distinctive and unique. It has a bit of Dalek gun DNA in it, with the skeleton becoming visible. But it's also a bit more disturbing in a way, as it seems like it instantly vaporizes you, but then also freezes your body in place and leaves this ghostly, slow-motion, decaying form floating afterwards. It's nice to see a few darker, more disturbing elements creeping their way into this otherwise candy-colored era of Doctor Who. There's also that trippy sequence at the end when Belinda touches her star certificate to Alan's. The visuals and weird tone of this sequence feels like a direct homage to trippy psychedelic sequences from the classic era of Doctor Who. It reminds me in particular of the sequence at the end of the first episode of the Patrick Troughton story, The Mind Robber.
Jamie, the doctor!
It also has a bit of 2001: A Space Odyssey mixed in, with Belinda and Alan seeing babies and old versions of themselves. Alright, now let's move on to the story. Introductory stories are rarely my favorite on Doctor Who, as they often have to function as getting to know this new character's stories. So they spend a lot of time with either a new doctor or a new companion, and can sometimes treat the actual sci-fi story as a bit of an afterthought. But I feel like what we got here was a good balance between getting to know Belinda and sorting out a robot revolution. Having her story and the sci-fi story dovetail in such a personal way helps keep everything feeling more meaningful and coherent, avoiding the pitfall of having an episode that feels like it's trying to tell two stories at once. The somewhat absurd and satirical nature of the story gives it a bit of a Douglas Adams vibe, which I appreciate. Once the robots show up, we get a string of increasingly hilarious gags that underline just how absurd and overwhelming of a situation Belinda has found herself in. Her attempts to converse with Sasha 55, only to be met with more robo-propaganda, the introduction of the AI generator and its insane, pitiless crusade, crescendoing with the Superman 3-esque animation of Belinda becoming robotified. The story just keeps piling on the insanity.
I'm saying no.
I love the idea that they planned this out so precisely that they actually went ahead and made an animation of Belinda turning into a robot to show her when she arrived. This is the kind of silly, absurdist humor that I'm totally cool with having in my Doctor Who. The every ninth word thing was a nice little trick that enabled them to get a lot of information across quickly, while also showcasing Belinda's intelligence and pulling the Doctor and her together. Ncuti also sells the mourning of Sasha 55's loss well, and the scene does serve the purpose of bringing the Doctor and Belinda closer together by showing to her that he feels deeply for others. I also like that Belinda later uses Sasha's death as evidence that the Doctor is dangerous. I like that Belinda tells the Doctor not to shush her. I think the Doctor needs to get checked from time to time, and I think it just generally works better when there's more of a push and pull between the Doctor and the companion, each of them challenging the other to be the better version of themselves. I wonder if that's why the Doctor comes off a bit pushy and grating in this episode.
Lovely, let's go. Okay. Let's go, 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 let's go.
Maybe they're doing it to show that he can steamroll his friends and allies with his whirlwind of personality if he's not reined in by somebody assertive. I like that they bond in the medical area of the rebel base, with Belinda showing the other rebels that she's a helpful, compassionate leader, as well as giving her and the Doctor some time to bond and relate to each other over their shared medical knowledge and passion for helping others. The X-ray blanket is a clever way to sneak some cool sci-fi in there, while also quickly teaching Belinda about the Doctor being an alien. Now, here's the first nitpick I have. While I can appreciate that Belinda may feel bad for the rebels dying around her, I don't see how she can move so quickly from, what is this crazy thing happening to me that I have no control over, to, these are my people and it's my responsibility to sacrifice myself for them. Like, I get that they based their whole society off of her old star certificate that they found with her name on it, and their race is named after her, and they've sought her out to be their new queen and all that. But she did not cause any of this to happen. And she still has a life to get back to, you know? Parents who would mourn her loss and whatnot. The way she gives herself up is also pretty wild. Even for such a broad, expressionistic episode, this does feel a bit overly contrived. She switches the little polish robot on so that the robots will be able to track him and pinpoint the location of the rebel base, and then she just allows the robots to smash their way into the rebel base to capture her. They could have easily just started shooting and killing the rebels, Or the rebels could have started shooting and killing the robots. She could have easily just exited the base and gone onto the surface with the polished robot, turning it on then, thus sparing the rebels the risk of being slaughtered. But whatever, thankfully, I guess nobody decided to shoot this time, and she is taken before the AI generator. The twist here is fairly well done. They dropped a few breadcrumbs along the way, enough that it feels satisfying when the reveal happens. I was even okay with the corny AI is actually Al joke. This whole episode dances on that knife's edge of silliness pretty effectively, without falling into painfully juvenile pantomime territory, like some other season openers I could mention. Now, this is a story that has a message, like many Doctor Who stories, and I would say that the social message of the story is broad, but also a meaningful commentary on our modern times.
All you ever did was correct me. And tut, and huff, and roll your eyes, and tell me off.
In a world that's rapidly being overrun by AI technology, replacing jobs, social interactions, military operations, and disrupting the very fabric of society, it's important to keep in mind that it's not the technology itself, but the people designing or using the technology that we should be wary of. Moving on. A couple of jokes didn't quite land with me. I didn't like the robot killing the cat. What can I say? I have a cat and she's like a child to me, so that moment just bummed me out. Just vaporize another person next time, I'm fine with that. I also thought the part where Alan turned into a sperm and an egg, and he was then cleaned up by the polish robot, was kind of weird and gross. The Doctor's "Goodbye, Alan," followed by a high kick, just seemed a bit out of character for him. Celebrating somebody's death like that, even if it is a murderous psychopath like Alan, just seems not in the Doctor's character. It didn't seem like the Doctor to me.
Goodbye, Alan. Yes, Queen!
There are also a couple of awkward moments where the episode almost feels like it goes into video game NPC cutscene mode, if you know what I mean. Basically where it seems like people's brains shut off and they just go into default standing animation while something plays out in front of them that they should be reacting to. I'm especially thinking of the moment where the polish robot slowly rolls up to Belinda when she's about to get married to Alan, and she kneels down and she opens the back of it and she pulls out the star certificate, and then she turns back and starts heading towards Alan, and Alan is just sitting there not reacting. It's like his brain disappeared, you know? He didn't see the obvious trick get set up right in front of his face, you know? So that's one moment. And then the second moment would be when Belinda is first shown the TARDIS. You know, she opens the door, she's freaking out, the Doctor's freaking out, they're talking about how amazing it is. But you can see in the background behind them, that group of robots and rebels who are standing there after they finished their dialogue they had with them. And now they're all just standing there kind of like looking around, smiling blankly. There's a couple of moments like that. It's not a big issue, it's just I've noticed that happened a couple of times last season as well. And one final nitpick, I also don't like that he's comfortable enough with immediately nicknaming Belinda as Babes after knowing her for all of half a day. Like, I don't like that. That's the one thing about this Doctor that's a little odd. He seems like he gets a little too overly familiar, a little too quickly with everyone he meets. Like, I know personally that I don't necessarily trust people like that. In real life, people who are like, hey, like, I know, you know, I'm so friendly. It's like we're old friends. It's like, no, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you, but we have just met. You just met. I don't know anything about you yet. Don't act that familiar with me. You know, so I'd be a little standoffish, I think, if I met this version of the Doctor. Now, like I said earlier, this may very well be intentional, so that we have a starting point for Belinda and the Doctor's relationship, something to show the friction and the pain points between them, so they can build it later in the season. But nonetheless, it is still, you know, a bit annoying to watch. Just gonna say it. And that's it for my nitpicks. That's, you know, that's all the things. Not that major. Not that major. Anyway, moving on. The final scene between the two leads is a highlight of the episode. The Doctor's failure to charm the more savvy than most Belinda, and her calling him out for trying to whisk her away, and especially for checking her DNA without her permission, was a great way to establish an interesting, confrontational dynamic between them. These characters will challenge each other's worldviews, and by doing so, both grow and change. A key part of any good narrative. We're only one episode in, and I'm already far more invested in this season's relationship than last year's. Overall, I thought this was a solid start for the new season of Doctor Who. I like the new companion. Ncuti is as reliably charismatic as ever. The story was fun and entertaining, with just a dollop of relevant social commentary. And the episode looked great. I had a few minor nitpicks involving a few pacing issues and a couple of odd beats, but overall it is a very solid season opener. I give The Robot Revolution a B+. And that's it. That is my review of the first episode of the new season of Doctor Who, Ncuti Gatwa's second season. If you like what you saw here, please remember to like and subscribe. I will be doing reviews for this season every week, so stay tuned, and thank you for watching this video. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say, so until next time, Kay, signing out.